Hi, I'm Elliot Trotter for Skyd Magazine here at the 2011 Club Championships in Sarasota, Florida, brought to you by USA Ultimate, and this is Hard Cap. I've got Maya Ziv here, our mixed correspondent who's been covering mixed this entire tournament all by herself. We don't know quite how she's been able to do it, but we've known what's going on in every game thanks to her. And Maya, we had quarters and semis today. A lot of these tough teams finally matching up. Tell me, what were some of the top quarterfinal games that you watched, and what were some of the results that surprised you?
Well, I started off on the sidelines of Wolverines and AMP, and then on the other side it was Polar Bears Slow White. Wolverines went up really early on AMP, no surprise there. They actually finished that game pretty quickly. I think it was 15-9 was the final score, which is pretty good for AMP. It's a good way to go out. That's a good score against a top team like Wolverines, but I think we weren't really surprised there. With Polar Bears and Slow White, they were actually trading points, and I took a break to go check out the other games, and then when I came back, they had just won 15-9. And so I heard what happened was there were a lot of riskier throws from Slow White. They thought they could get some just inside throws that weren't working out for them. Polar Bears are just much more consistent in that respect. They definitely practiced those a lot more. And there were many times, I believe there were actually 4 times in Slow White's red zone where they had turnovers just right on the end zone line. Polar Bears are really good at capitalizing on those, and they did just that and pulled away and won there. And then on the other side, we had Ghost and Blackbird. Now that really surprised me. When I walked over, Blackbird was up already. Ghost rallied back pretty well, and actually there was an interesting little turn of events when Blackbird, at 14-12, Blackbird caught a really deep puck, and their player was just on the end zone line, and he immediately calls a timeout. Turns out that Blackbird didn't have any timeouts left, and so what could have immediately won them the game actually resulted in a turnover, which was really a bummer for their sideline. They were all kind of shocked, and Jeff Graham runs on the field pointing at them, all excited, and but I believe that Ghosts weren't able to turn that into a score, and Blackbird pulled away and won 15-12 there. Great win for them, definitely, over the 1 seed there, so that was really exciting. On the other side, I think my biggest surprise, honestly, was District 5 beating Chad Larson Experience. I would not have predicted that. That game just had a lot of calls. I think it really slowed down momentum, and there was a lot of discussion. You know, sometimes they were talking for, it seemed like 3 or 4 minutes about a call. And with a game like that, you know, it really gets into the heads of players, and I think Chad Larson just let it get to them. They couldn't shut down the players. They were looking tired. It looked like, you know, they were just letting them have these free unders, which ended up resulting in District 5 scoring just repeatedly. And, you know, Chad Larson started putting on Bob Lou, who's been great for them on both O-line and D-line, but it seemed like it was too little too late. And they ended up they scored, it was 14-9, they score to 10, but they couldn't really get past that, and District 5 won 15-10 there.
All right, so in the semis, we saw Polar Bears face off against Wolverines, and D5 compete against Blackbird.
Right.
So what happened? You know, Wolverines has been a strong team this entire tournament. I think they only lost 1 game up until semis. Which games were you watching? Were you kind of keeping your eye on both of them?
Yeah, because they were staggered, I was able to watch both of them pretty solidly. Wolverines and Polar Bears was really interesting. I mean, they're just 2 really athletic teams. Polar Bears is a more complex team. I think they have a certain focus. Like, they really work on their IOs. They have a complex strategy. Wolverines just kind of go out and play hard. They're great athletes and have a lot of experience. They were actually trading points until the wind picked up, and then Polar Bears pull away with a break, and they actually ended up winning by 2, 15-13. It became an up-win, down-win game at a certain point, and Wolverines just couldn't capitalize. I think the loss of Aaron Richards might have done a lot there. Actually, in this game, he was on crutches with his leg wrapped up. Looks like it might be more serious than what we thought was a pulled calf. So that's a bummer for Wolverines, but I think they can be proud with that game. They've been playing hard all weekend, and honestly, going out to a team like Polar Bears, you know, they were national champions last year. They know what it takes to win. I think they had a good game there.
Okay, and then in our other semifinal matchup, we had D5, last year's runner-up, and Blackbird, a team that has just assembled this year.
Yeah. I'm not really surprised there. The final result, I believe, was 15-8, I believe, Blackbird over District 5. I think District 5 got lucky, honestly, in the win against Chad Larson, just with all the calls calls that were happening got in Chad Larson's head. That's not going to happen against a team like Blackbird. They might have come together this year, but they are experienced individually, and I think I've said this before, they have grown a lot this tournament. They work so well together now. It's very impressive. They seem to all be on the same page about where each other will be, and I think District 5 just made too many mistakes. You know, there were drops, there were hucks just thrown way out. I think the wind, which picked up a lot this last round, which hasn't been all weekend, sort of affected that way more than they would have expected. And Blackbird, probably being from San Francisco, having that experience, probably better at throwing in the wind than District 5, and they really showed that today. And so I think Blackbird just shut it out. They got up quick, they stayed up, and District 5 didn't really have a chance, unfortunately.
So we have Blackbird and Polar Bears in the final. Are these teams different in their playing style? What are your predictions for this matchup? Do Polar Bears take a second championship in a row, or does Blackbird come out of nowhere, swoop down, and steal the gold?
What I think is interesting is actually there's a really close matchup in play style here. Both teams really like to work their IO throws. In fact, there were many points for both teams in the semis, which they scored with just IO break after IO break. And that's just going to be really interesting to match up. Having practiced that, they're probably also used to really marking hard and guarding the IO. So we'll see if that works out for both of them. Maybe they'll both have to work their around game this time. I was more impressed with Blackbird's around throws. I think Jamie Newer for them is an amazing around thrower. She just gets so low and seems to shred marks. But then again, on the flip side, you have Anchi Su for Polar Bears, who does the exact same thing. I think it's really going to come down to the women this game, honestly. There's great matchups on the guys, but yeah, Anchi Su and Lisa Pipkali for the Polar Bears. I think those two girls are just going to run their game. Anna Nazarov and Jamie Newer are going to work well together, but I think if Polar Bears want to win here, they're just going to have to force Anna Nazarov deep. She's been getting in a lot, and Anna can throw it, and she has really, really great insides that just people really can't guard against. And so I think if Polar Bears want to win it, they're going to have to force her deep. Another thing, if it's windy again, we might see some of this Polar Bears zone that they've had throughout the season. It's a really oppressive zone, honestly. It changes based on the gender of the thrower, which is really cool. When there's a girl holding it, they clamp down a lot more. And so we'll see if that works out. Anna and Jamie both are good throwers, but honestly, Blackbird has a lot of skill across the board. I point out those two just because they've been big playmakers in the games, but we'll see if the Polar Bears end up taking that strategy or not. And I think Blackbird, if they stick to their game, they've been playing their top players, but in a tournament like Nationals where you only have the one finals game, being tired might just not be an issue. If they stretch and ice and take care of themselves tonight, there's no major injuries on either team. Adam Ratty for the Polar Bears is back in, doing fine. He feels great. So we'll see how that matches up.
So what's your pick, Maya? Let's get down to it.
I think here I do have the Polar Bears coming out. You know, having won before gets you in that mentality. Having a harder game in semis gets you ready to fight. I think Blackbird really needs to keep their mental game up. Polar Bears know what it takes to win, and they're ready to do it.
All right. Maya Ziv, correspondent for the mixed division at the 2011 Club Championships. I'm Elliot Trotter for Sky Magazine, and this is Hardcap.